Hello everybody, my name is Caden and welcome back to our Prehistoric Fauna Park and to a good exhibit, a little bit of a palate cleanser from the last episode. I was about to say last week's episode, but I don't really know if I'm doing it weekly still or whatnot, whenever the last video was, you know. Anyway, that's not important. Today we are building the exhibit for the... I looked at its name before I started, and it's completely left my head. The ADHD is really coming out today. It's probably because it's like almost midnight. Anyway, the Ischgaultasia, I think is how you say it. Basically, the really big Diectodont. They're very chubby. They're very cute. They're like little hippos. They're like really big lizard hippos, and I like them. Anyway, today's exhibit, like I've been mentioning more recently, where I've gotten like the inspiration for these things from, I looked, oddly enough, I think it's kind of oddly enough, because usually for an animal like this, I'd be like, oh, an elephant, or oh, you know, a hippo. Well, hippo didn't really work, because I don't think these guys were semi-aquatic, at least nothing I found said they were semi-aquatic. And elephants were a bit too big, and... what was it? What was the other animal I had thought of to look for inspiration from? I think elk was the other one, and I just was like, nah, that's not really working. And rhinos, that was the other one. And no, not rhinos. Finally, the animal I kind of landed on, oddly enough, is, well, cattle. And you might be like, why? I'd be like, well, when I was looking at these animals and kind of reading more into them, they were kind of just late Triassic cows. There were a lot of them, and they were big, and I was about to say grazers. There was nothing to graze on, so they were more like rhinos where they ate shrubbery, I'm guessing. But, I mean, again, at the end of the day, it's all paleontology is mostly guesswork from context clues, which is a lot like what history is. Random tangent there. But anyway, I kind of looked at some, I was about to say Texas Longhorn. It is not Texas Longhorn cattle. It's is it the Zebu cattle? No, the Zebu's the Indian one, isn't it? Oh, what is it called? The African, like, longhorn steer. You see them sometimes, I mean, at least I'm thinking I see them in the giraffe exhibit at my local zoo. I don't know if other people know what I'm talking about. Maybe I'll have slapped an image in here to show you guys the animal. Anyway, I looked at exhibits for those, which are generally mostly dirt with these very temporary looking fences. These very temporary looking wire fences. And someone might be like, well, why would you want a temporary looking wire fence? Well, the reasoning I thought of for this is I now know that there is a, what is it called? Another one of these coming out. I think it's Placerius at some point, whenever the mod updates, if we're still doing this by the time the mod updates. But anyway, aside from potentially another one of these being added, when I was researching, when I got the idea to maybe look at like water buffalo or other forms of cattle for an inspiration for this build, I kind of realized a lot of those exhibits, at least ones that are purely just for those animals, tend to have temporary fencing. It's usually made like a very simple like post and wire mesh, because they'll either need to expand it, they might need to move it depending on like how big the herd is, depending on where the food is, that kind of stuff, or if they need to repair certain areas. And I kind of liked that idea. Not saying that this, you know, for this park they're necessarily expanding this exhibit out a bunch. They might be, who knows, but I don't know, I just thought that was a really cool idea, and it was a bit of a different look. I mean, there's only so many ways I can build a wire fence, and to be honest, it doesn't look exactly like how I'd like it to, but, you know, it kind of turned out okay. I think it turns out fine. The bigger issue is I now have to put foliage behind the whole thing, and that is not something I'm looking forward to, because obviously there's no other exhibits or anything behind it, and if there was like staff areas behind it, we don't really want the guests seeing that, so, you know, we gotta cover it up. which is annoying because I decided to go for realism. Woo! Gotta love realism, yay! And I really shouldn't even say realism. I guess I should say like semi-realism. I think that was the term I landed on in one of the previous episodes, just because that's a bit more true to form with what this is like. Anyway, pretty simple exhibit. We've got very slow kind of gradient going up to the back of the enclosure. We got a little bit of rock work because, you know, I love me some like natural looking rocks all over the place in the build. It adds a lot of life, a lot of character. We got the shelter, which is again another one that's at a weird angle. Also, I made a slightly different looking pattern for this ground. I think I did. Yeah, I think I had a couple of different blocks I didn't have in the Seleucus enclosure at the end. I don't actually remember. I had to edit it a few times just because, well, I kind of messed up with certain blocks. I didn't realize some were like sand, but I really like this texture. I think it looks really good. It looks like we have large animals walking around here all the time, probably eating just about anything and everything that would grow. I also tried out for the planted area throwing in some mulch from ZAWA instead of the usual grass. And to be honest, I really like this. I think I might do more of it in the future. Also, there's a really weird noise outside my window and I don't know what it is. Probably like, you know, I don't know, a murderer with like an axe or something maybe, who knows. Anyway, that got a bit grim. It is Halloween when I'm recording this, so you never know. Anyway, once again, I feel like most of the time for this build, like the Seleucus exhibit, most of the time for the build goes more into the setting up of the enclosure and all of the things around it than what would necessarily be like the inside. Like, we don't decorate this build out too much. There's not a lot of plants, there's not a lot of like interesting little, you know, gubbins everywhere. It's more just, well, like an actual exhibit for a zoo like this. It's very plain because you can't really put a lot in there. The animals will destroy it. Now this is something I kind of want to change the style of a little bit. Basically, I think the build I'm currently working on, I'm trying to integrate something we've used before for an old ZAWA build, which was I think we made like basically some planters inside the enclosure for an Indian elephant exhibit. And I'd kind of like to bring something like that back because I think that'd be a good idea. Kind of a way to change things up a little bit. I guess kind of like what we've done in the Seleucus exhibit, but a bit more integrated than that. Also, this is the first build, I think, where I used, I don't even remember the mod anymore. It's like XK Deco or something, maybe. Maybe I'll put that in the video if I remember to check it, or I'll put it in the description. Anyway, yeah, it's like it added in these like tiled roofs and they looked really good. And I use this for a couple of builds in the future because, I don't know, I just really liked how it ended up looking. It's got some weird quirks here and there, and it's a bit odd to build with sometimes. But overall, I think the effect is really good for a semi-industrial tiled roof. It actually very much reminds me of a lot of the roofs around where I live, which is kind of cool. And I guess a lot of like zoo kind of maintenance buildings also have this kind of roofing. So yeah, anyway, very fun, very cool. At least I think it is. I like how in the background of pretty much every single video you can see my little palette in the far like back there. I don't know, that's just funny to me. Mostly because it isn't there anymore because I've actually had to build out that direction. But yeah, anyway, we got the main shelter there, and then a secondary building, which was originally going to be a shelter. I actually don't even remember if I keep that building. It's been a few weeks since I built this, so... And I actually haven't recorded the end cinematic for this one yet. So yeah. Yeah, also the tiled roof did kind of make some weird things with how I kind of shaped the building. Yeah, okay, yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure I don't keep that secondary building, but yeah, I was right, I didn't. Mostly because I could not figure out what to use it for, and there was no way to like naturally integrate it in. Plus, you couldn't even really see it from the main viewing area. Oh, I also do a little bit of an elevated viewing area, which I think will did end up needing a bit more work. I'm probably going to work on it some more before I record the end cinematic, just to kind of really nail the look I was going for. But yeah, anyway, I've been trying to, since this build especially, and especially the last episode where the exhibit didn't end up turning out very good, I've been trying to add more and more, you know, zoo elements into these builds to try and make them more interesting. I mean, I definitely need to add in utilities, so like bathrooms, more seating areas, places for people to get some snacks and stuff. And I don't know if I'm going to do that in a video or if I'm just going to do that between episodes, probably between episodes, because that's the kind of stuff that I do like very slowly over the course of a couple of weeks and in between projects and whatnot. But yeah, anyway, pretty cool little build. I don't think there's too much else to talk about, so I think I'll leave you guys here. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you've all enjoyed, and enjoy those last little cinematics.
Yeah.